Welcome everyone to 2023 Water and Sewer meeting. Happy New Year, everyone. And if someone can make a motion to accept our
Accept the minutes of last month.
So moved. Mike, you want to talk about the water and sewer rates?
Yeah, so we'll be beginning the budget process now. We're into January, so as always, this is the time where I'll be sending out the notifications to the departments. And one of the things we'll be looking at is the water and sewer rates. So what I've worked on is basically a rate justification form, which basically just outlines what the rate is, what goes into it, and why the rate is where it is. So I'll be going over that with Mike and Tony this month with them to bring back to you guys for February to look at, which will just, like I said, lay out where the rates are. So we have some decisions that are going to be happening with this next upcoming budget. One of the big ones is you have $99,000 coming off for 2024 for the, which one is that, Tony? That's
the sewer expansion.
Sewer
debt.
expansion,
Yeah.
thank you. The sewer and sewer department's share.
Paid
And
for.
we're bringing on the 40-something thousand for the pump station, but that's still gonna leave about 50,000 in additional revenue that's coming in. So, one of the things that I think we really need to start talking about, and DEP pushed it last year with us talking about a succession plan, that we have to realize, what are we going to do with that? Is this an opportunity at this point to bring on training somebody? Because it takes a number of years to get somebody trained. The going rate of water and sewer operators is just exploding upward. Like demand around the state. I mean, it's not just there, it's assessing, it's you name it, municipal jobs. They're just, the pace is really accelerating. So the idea that we're going to steal somebody from the east part of the state to come here is probably slim. So then do we begin the process of training people? And Mike and Tony, what would you guys say is the time frame for getting licensure for somebody?
5 years, maybe.
Yeah, I would, as we've discussed before, the tough part is with the water now. Wastewater, we can still go in and say, okay, I want to take a grade 4 license. And if you pass it, you got to show 5 years experience before you get your full status. But water is that whole prerequisite. You got to start at 1, then you go to 2, then you go to 3, and it's probably a minimum of 6 months to a year for each one. And then once you get to the grade 3, like the water treatment plan is, then you have to show 5 years experience before you become the primary operator. So the water's the big one. And and then there's distribution licenses within that, and then taking wastewater classes and going and getting your licenses. If we get somebody with no licenses, it's going to be a long run.
That's what I can kind of relate to that, because not only do we have to get them licensed, they have to be able to know the systems.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they're just spending time to get trained and licensed and educated in that, they're not getting the whole picture. So I don't know what to.
How would we go
And then
about?
how do you get a commitment from this person?
Right.
That's the big problem.
Don't get me wrong, when
Right, full
when
commit.
I left North Adam, one thing I was the commissioner for the Hoosick Water Quality District. We were dealing with the same thing, getting people in. Not only that, but the difficulty in them passing the test, let alone, you can end up spending 2-3 years trying to get a person through.
Yeah.
And they don't make it through because they can't pass the test. You can have a person that's excellent, knows how to physically do it, but can't pass the rigorous testing and the rest. There are definitely challenges here. We're just trying to come up with an initial plan here. And even though I say, 40-50,000 is going to be now and created in surplus in the water, in sewer, right now they share a half-time position. So we only have to, one position right now, they share half. So sewer can accommodate bringing on, say, putting Mark completely over under sewer, and then bringing somebody under Mike, and then we'd have to figure out that piece. So that's really gonna be the challenge of this budget season because, you know, we're probably looking at a time frame of 7, 8 years of probably an overhaul of at least these two, and, you know, Mark isn't that far behind. So, you know, we need to be being proactive here and thinking. And it's not just us, I'm gonna be talking to other communities too, because water and sewer operations is just, there aren't enough people in it. There's a very limited pool, and what can we do to create our own apprenticeship programs and other stuff? Like I said, we're talking about this at the managers associations, whether it's training of assessors, training of, you know, tax collectors, training. There's just not enough people going into it. So how do you?
So where do we start with this, Michael?
I think that we were talking about the possibility of bringing on somebody next season with the opportunity with that debt falling off of sewer, that it would not impact as much. And then Mike still has some surplus in his, that we use that surplus to bring on the position under his.
So we would be advertising this as a position in the future, but we also to train these
Position
people.
now. And we'd have to figure out how to, there are ways to, if we're paying for training and other stuff where you try to get the person, to commit to agreeing to pay back. I mean, you can't force them to stay, but you can try to incentivize them to stay, along with some de-incentivization. I don't know if that's.
Well, financial, money talks.
Yeah. It's gonna be a challenge, so we're putting it together. I plan on speaking at this month when we do our internal DPW, Department of Public Works, where I look at all 3 departments, including highway, and say, all right, where do we need to be? What training do we need, and how do we make sure that we're positioning ourselves? Because it's not just challenging for us, it's gonna be others. And there's a lot of talk that we're all cannibalizing each other in Berkshire County.
Well,
Because we're not attractive enough to pull from the eastern part of the state with where our pay and everything else is. So it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
But I do think we possibly have an opportunity here. Could we get somebody in that could begin that training process? And a lot of operators, these two can speak about it. They get used to the plant that they're at. They get used to understanding their plant. They get comfortable with it and the rest. And that's what we try to be. I'm one, if you can find people a good pay and you can make them happy in their job, they don't even look.
yeah.
You got to do at least one of the two to keep them. Ideally, if you're doing both, they're not even looking at what else is out there. So, that'd be one of those things. Can we create a good job environment with good pay and good incentives to stay and develop our own support staff so that we can transition as the town moves toward some key positions. I'd like, 7 years people go, that's a long time, but it's not. It's going to come fast, and the town's benefited from, how many years have both you guys been here? So it's been a long time. But there's going to be a transition coming up that we need to prepare ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'll bring the succession plan to our next meeting.
Yep.
And we'll go over it, because I can't remember how I wrote it down, and I never heard anything back from the DEP. I'm sure they were just happy to see it by the due date, and
They want to see it. They want to see that we have a plan, but then is it, I always call it, is it a living document or is it on the shelf collecting dust?
probably a little bit of both.
We need it to be a living document.
Right.
We need to be at something we're working toward, not just throw it on a shelf and say, great, we did our minimal requirement. And
And that, like, to echo what Peter was saying, and Tony, the commitment, and the other thing that we've mentioned before too, is just wanting the responsibility, the 24/7, 365. That's
a big one.
That's the big one.
To
So-
understand the complete job.
Yeah, and it's very stressful sometimes,
Yeah, 3 a.m, get the call.
Yeah, when we couldn't get enough water to the water plant last year and a half ago, in middle of summer and peak demands because of the intake structure line, and it was a little nerve wracking when you can't make enough water to get out to the people. got to be able to work through that stuff. But yeah, we've got to figure that out for sure. Yeah.
Patrick?
I think also one really important aspect of these guys' profile, speaking by you, the third person, is that you're local members of the community with long-term family ties here, and that has mattered. You know, it's like you guys are like, hometown guys and
Born and raised.
and born and raised. And I think that this is one area where that is critically important if you're looking to, work with the high school, find candidates who are last 5 years, still around here and or maybe are looking for, the kind of, I just think it's like the biggest risk is going to be we spend $300,000 or $400,000 training somebody. And if they don't have those community ties, then all of a sudden you're 7 years in and there's nothing that ties them here,
Yeah.
That's the
a lot to be said for that.
situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that commitment and to stay with us.
I just think, when your mom works at the library, it's like, everybody knows these guys.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's great. We're moving ahead with that. And it's also nice that we have that additional monies coming in from Tony's payment. Sewer's done.
Can't believe it's done already. Went by fast. 20
Yeah.
years went by.
Isn't that something? 12 years. Tony, the I study,
Well, it's ongoing. I do have an update for you from the phase 3, which we are about 90% complete with that. There's a couple segments of pipe that was left out. There's a couple weeks, there's probably like 7 or 8 physical days of cammering left. They have found segments, mostly of the clay, that they are going to, once we get a formal report back from this phase of it, they're going to recommend to be lined or replaced, which we were kind of expecting over here on Maple and Elm. We know that. They'll be putting together all the results into a nice GIS map. And, they've found several places where, from an operation and maintenance standpoint that, we have some deficiencies in our system, obviously. We know that. And through this third phase, once we get the final report, they'll be spelled out where they are. And, we can make the determination of when and how we fix it, which is, a big part of this.
when's the study, when do you think it's going to be complete?
Well, it's
Is it weather related, Tony? or-
you mean this?
Yeah.
No, they just had spots where they just didn't get to, I guess. So, I'm hoping they can get back out here within like the month, and I spoke to them today on the phone and get it completed. And then, of course, so once this phase is totally completed, we'll have completely cambered 40% of our system, which leaves quite a bit of it still not done. And, according to DEP, the CMOM regulations, they want a complete analysis of the whole, of not just ours, of every sewer system in the state. They want people to assess their situations, try to find their I&I. And this is kind of the big push from DEP these days.
Are other towns committed to this?
Oh, yeah.
You don't have a choice.
You don't have a choice. And,
So what do we need to do now?
So we have phase 4, which he has kind of outlined for us, but I think it's it's a bit of a reach, phase 4, for what he's outlined. Mike's looked at it too. It was a while back. We looked it over. I just think that, I don't know if the town can afford, or the sewer department, I should say, can afford to do the whole bite of phase 4 at once. It's like $265,000.
The study.
Just the study. Well, I mean, it's 60% of the system cambered. It's also doing field work for the low pressure side of it, where they inspect every single manhole, every single air release. I don't have the whole proposal with me, but it's quite involved. There's some work to do out in our system, other than just relining pipes. There's manholes that need work. We have almost 400 manholes and some of them are over 100 years old.
Yeah. So where do you think we should go from here?
I think we should sit down with Dave Prickett and maybe three of us in this room, or you guys if you want, or have him come in, or maybe just I'll do it and try to scale down phase 4 to get the most bang for our buck without spending all that money.
Okay.
You know, I don't know. It's, to me, we're spending a lot of money to study from the phase 3, from what we found out in phase 3, it seems like we should be spending the money to fix it, but I know that we have to keep going with the study, but it's just, for a small town like us, it's a big,
You know, it'd be nice just to take care of phase 3.
yeah, I know, but I think that DEP is not going to just allow that. They're going to want us to keep moving forward,
Yeah,
even though we want to be proactive to fix.
yeah,
There's a balance there that I'm not sure what it is yet, if you will.
okay. I think that's a good idea, get Dave in and go from there and get some more recommendations. Okay. Safe yield study?
Yeah, after our last meeting, I was hoping we would have it within a day or two, but I still don't have it. And I think the main reason is the gentleman that's doing it asked for rain data for the year of what was the year? 1990, or no, I'm sorry, 2002 or 2005. So I had all the records that I could find here go up to 1998. And I had in the plant, I had back to like 2004. So I think he wanted 2002. And it's the gap that I can't find. And I know years ago when we had a lot of water damage in the records room and they threw a lot of stuff out. And I don't know if our stuff was in that. So that was when we had a true state identified drought. So they wanted to know what our rain data was. I gave him all the flow data and all, but he's looking for the actual rain data, rainfall data, and our actual flow data, our raw water flow to the treatment plant. So I can't find that one year that he's looking for.
Can't we go through something like the Pittsfield Airport or something that,
As far as the rain data, I'm sure, because Harold's a weather spotter.
you know,
So that's with the state. That part of it, it's our raw water flow, which I have a call in the DEP, but everybody's working from home. So still,
right, they should have that on the record.
they should have all of our stuff, but I don't know. They said, I talked to one of our guys that we've been working with for 25 years and he said they keep 7 years back and pitch everything. Yeah. So
You think they put it on a
unfortunately,
disc somewhere,
yeah, I don't, so that's the only thing I believe that's holding up. I think they have kind of everything else, like for the bathymetry and all that. And they want to really get our safe field number really pinpointed, which we want accurate, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Yes, Patrick.
Out of the 60% that's left, how much of that is clay pipe?
Not much of it because most of it's up in the Beechwood, Mackinac area.
So it might make sense to just, if you're gonna scale them back, to focus on getting all the clay stuff mapped or.
Yeah, the clay, most of the clay is been done in phase 3 and there's a small amount that just hasn't gotten done yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have any clay like around the lake or anything. That's all newer.
That's
No, I understand, you know what I'm saying though, I mean, if we're trying to identify, you know.
The worst.
The worst parts.
Yeah, there's just there's like 10% of the phase 3 study camera work left that needs to get done.
Okay. I mean, that seems like a reasonable kind of potentially, you know.
Okay. Master plan.
Master plan, Dave Prickett is doing, I contacted them today. It's coming along very well. They're making good progress with that. I sent them all of our GIS data for the water and sewer systems and drainage. So they're going through all of the dates, and I tried to date everything in the water system that we have, the size of mains. And so they're putting quite a plethora of information together, mapping to projects to aging infrastructure and valves. And it's quite a project for sure. It, touches on every aspect of the whole water system. So,
It's gonna be good when that's done.
yeah, it's going to be interesting reading. I'm really anxious to.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping within the before next month's meeting, hopefully we'll have maybe a draft copy or something to look over.
I just put on your plans for the new salt shed. I know you guys are involved in that a little bit, and how's that coming along?
Yeah, I guess Mike can we've been working with Foresight on that.
Yeah, we're just trying to figure out what the optimal layout right now is. We think overall we can reduce the size needed for the salt and the stone, but what we want to do is try to use that whole location and use a cold storage area so we can get some of our other equipment out from the weather and underneath there.
Makes sense.
Last we left it, Hugh had a couple concerns, so we had him directly contacting them and then figuring it out. And hopefully, obviously we want to get that time because we'd like to see, if possible, something done this construction season coming up.
I was gonna ask you that.
Yes.
And it's gonna be at the same site.
Same site, pretty much same location, same everything. It's just probably dividers. You basically tee off one area, so it'd have 2 bays where salt and then stone. And he was talking about moving one of the walls so he could shorten it up a little bit, put some salt on one side, but have that wider, and then the other area stone, which then would leave a back area, which we'd have to make sure is properly done because you don't want salt getting in there, but having a whole storage area where we could put, instead of like now where you got all the plows in the summer just sitting out all over the place, those would be stored away, sort of like the rest of us probably do with our sheds. You alter things around, you pull your winter stuff out, you put your spring and summer stuff away, and the same thing, which would just allow us to extend the life of vehicles and equipment and other stuff by being able to put them in storage.
Well, I've heard more comments of people just talking about going down there and just, seeing that whole area. It's just, it's pretty neat in the way that everything is done down there too. It's all organized, clean. Your brother's got candy canes and greenery, and I mean, you don't see that in any other town. I don't think it's pretty neat.
Yeah, it is. And once we get this in, we'll really clean up the rest of it, and it'll be really, really good. So we, once again, that's another thing, just in the process, just chugging away. We've had one meeting with Foresight down at the thing, and then, like I said, you had a couple ideas, so I had him directly reaching out to them, and then we'll start putting together some specs and figuring out exact cost and going from there. So,
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Mike, have you done anything with that walk around the lake?
No, I got a call now that I'll talk to Jeff, because I thought Shelby might want to do a walk around the 330 acres there up on O'Neill's Corner, the town owns, but there was a lot of guys hunting in there.
Yeah.
So the last time I had contacted Shelby, I said, once the deer season is over, schedule a time with Jeff to walk the other one, because I really don't need to be with them. If time allows it, I'll go, but because I know they were looking to do it on a Saturday or a Sunday, which I really didn't want to do, but I'll get back in contact with him and try to schedule some. Looks like we're going to have a couple of weeks where there's going to be no snow, so.
Yeah. No, that's an isolated area up there though, right? I mean, does the town of Stockbridge own down to the road?
Oh, yeah.
They do?
Yep.
Because that butts Clint's land, right?
Yes, and it goes all the way over to John S. Lanes over in West
No
Stockbridge,
kidding.
goes
Wow.
towards Card Pond to Lavalette property.
That's a big area.
It's a big chunk of woods, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very mountainous too, but it's steep and.
When you do that, if I'm around, I'd like to do that with you.
Sure, yep.
So just give me a call. That'd be great. Okay. Before I ask about any other concerns, I just want to just make a note from the Water and Sewer Commission that we hope that Jennifer Carmichael makes a quick recovery from her surgery that she had. And I hope she has a fast recovery. We miss her here. It's always nice to see her here. Tony and Mike's concern?
No real concerns.
Okay.
We'll be over by your house tomorrow to rebuild that hydrant. It's all painted and
I thought
finally came in, so we're,
that was an old hydrant, huh? Or-
no, it's a newer one. Well, me and Frank put that in the late nineties, but, it's an oddball size. It's the smaller size. It's a 4.5-inch main valve where all the newer ones are 5.25. And I had all the kits to rebuild the main valve, which I thought I had the traffic flange kit for when the car hits it and breaks it off, but I didn't have it. Because we only have, I think, 4 or 5 of them. Most of all the other ones are 5.25.
Yeah, I was
so.
surprised that when she hit that it snapped and instead of, really rupturing something in the ground.
Yeah, no, they usually they snap right off. They work well,
Yeah.
thankfully.
Yeah, thankfully.
Because that was was that Christmas? Was that just before Christmas?
Just before Christmas. Yeah, it was, I think 1:30 in the morning.
Yes, that's when I got the phone call.
There
Yeah.
was a crash and Rosie sat up and she said, "What was that?" I looked out there and there was a thing in the telephone pole.
Was the car still there?
The car was there. She had a 4-way blinkers on and she wasn't hurt.
Yeah.
She put a real divot in the telephone pole.
Yeah.
And she took care of the hydrant and, but anyway, no one was hurt, so it was good and didn't affect our
Was that the
water.
snowfall that we had, the first snowfall we had?
No, I think it was, it was right.
There were a few accidents that first.
No, this is, I think she probably fell asleep. It looked like the track. She just veered off the road. The fire hydrant saved her.
Slowed her down before the pole was
Slowed her
taken out.
down, yeah. So, anyway, I think that's about it. Oh, yeah, we should talk about that.
So back almost 10 months ago now, we got a proposal from Dave Prickett, DPC Engineering, to do a sewer needs analysis proposal for, his proposal breaks it down into, I think, 5 sub areas that aren't sewered currently, that are near where sewers are. So I guess we kind of discussed it, and now with some concerns of ARPA funds and things like that and what to do with them, I just thought it might be a good time to discuss maybe reviewing it again and bringing it back up. I don't know.
Yes, I think so too. And that's
What are those 5 subzones?
What are they? They're on a map here. North of the causeway, Lake Drive, the western shore of the lake, the part of Glendale and part of Ice Glen Road. Some of them are might just be moot, but he did break them down and he did want to take a look at them. I mean, some of them might not be worth, for what the people, how many people live in that area, it might not be, for the amount of pipe you need to put in, it might not work for our advantage. But, with all the concerns of sewers and people are sensitive to this subject at the moment,
yes.
it might be worth taking a look at. And
How much was the proposal?
this proposal, and it's accurate today, because I called them, is a little under $50,000. 49,890 something. I don't have my glasses. I can't exactly see the amount, but.
What is that for? 49,000.
What is it for?
Yeah, for the proposal, just for the proposal for the.
No, doing the evaluation.
Oh, doing the evaluation.
Doing the evaluation, creating a report. It's all summarized in there. I can make copies for you guys to review it and stuff.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, I'd like
We
to-
get copies of it.
Yeah.
Yep, that'd be great. I think we should go ahead with that.
And that's for all zones that he's,
Yes, yep,
the 5 zones.
yep.
And what's the deliverable?
With what?
What's the deliverable? Do you get like cost to expand, sort of,
So the scope of services is a kickoff meeting, review existing information, site visits, coordination with local board of health, conceptual sewer layouts, connections to existing sewer systems, downstream sewer needs, GIS mapping, preliminary opinions of probable cost, I'm sorry, and, draft memorandums, coordination meetings. It's all broken down. I can give you a copy. Yeah. And then there's a map of the,
Get all that for that money.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good deal.
yeah, I mean,
Sounds like a pretty good deal.
Sounds like a great idea. Could we use ARPA money for that?
Sounds like a bargain.
We can consider.
Okay. Yeah, if we could get
I'll
copies.
get copies.
And if you,
If you remember the one question, and I'll get confirmation now that we've moved it all over as surplus as to. I'm trying to remember if we still have to follow the federal guidelines for the use. Remember that was,
yeah,
engineering is not exempt under federal law or state. You can just select an engineer, so you can use the same company that's already familiar with your system. I'll get that back to you guys for the next meeting, because I know you were interested in staying with them.
yes, yes.
If not, it could trigger where we have to go out and get quotes for different engineering. Let me get back to you on that, because I know what we did do is we declared it just lost revenue.
Yeah.
So I think that
It's all general revenue
but
now.
we still have to report it back to the federal government on our audit, to do the federal audit section. And I'll check, I have our auditors coming in this month, and I'll double check with them on whether or not we would have to, how that has to fall. If it's just been declared surplus revenue, I think we could just have to follow Mass General Law, which then we could just use the engineering firm that we have. But I'll get the confirmation with that. Tony can get that out to you guys, and then we can decide on how we're gonna approach it at the next meeting.
Good. Sounds good to me. Okay. Anything else? Jamie, Patrick? Okay. Someone want to make a motion?
Wait, I have a question.
Yes, Anita.
Hello? Hi. Hi, Happy New Year. When you were just talking about the sewer, you said that he had identified 5 areas, and I only got 4 of them down: north of the Causeway, Lake Drive, West Shore, Glendale, and Ice Glen.
Yeah, so it's the western shore of the bowl, the northeast shore of the bowl, north of the causeway, an area off of Bean Hill Road, an area E, which looks like it's off of the end of Ice Glen. F is a partial part of Cherry Hill, and D is over in Williamsville area.
We can send you,
So I'm sorry, there's 6 areas.
we can send you
Okay.
that.
Yeah, we can send her a copy of it.
Well, thank you. My original question was actually about what Paul Sundberg was asking last week about Averick and Train Hill Road. And I was curious in particular about the private sewer line that already exists on Train Hill, but that the person won't allow other people to connect to it, but yet now the state says that after a year, private sewer lines become property of the town? Is that correct?
No. This is our bylaw that we have after a year, it turns over to the town of Stockbridge. That line was put in prior to us coming up with that declare. So he still has that private line. And we did contact with him. We contacted him, and also I think several of the residents in that area contacted him. And right now he has no interest in letting anyone hook up.
Or turning it over to the town.
Or turning it over to the town, which we would gladly accept.
And it's his choice.
Yes.
Okay, are there other private sewer lines? Does DeSisto have a private sewer or just private water line?
Just private water.
Their campus is their own sewer, but
Yeah, their campus is their own sewer, but the line going down 183 is town.
So what is it possible to work on sewer expansion without doing a feasibility report first?
What was the question?
Is it possible to start on sewer expansion without the feasibility study that you had mentioned last time? Or is the feasibility study what you were just talking about from the person who identified 6 areas?
So the proposal I have in front of me is just from our engineer to do a needs analysis of the sub areas. And from there, the town would make a determination, or the commission or whoever, on whether whether the need was there to expand.
And I noticed that he did not include Averick or Train Hill Road.
Well, it's not spelled out, but it's in one of the sub areas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because as Paul pointed out, that they are close to the reservoir, which is the town water supply.
Correct.
So there was concern there. And it just seems odd. You know, that house with the private sewer line, they're actually listed as being in West Stockbridge. But Train Hill Road is actually Stockbridge, is that correct?
That's because they get their mail delivered from the West Stockbridge Post Office.
I live in Langston.
Okay, but is it a business there, that address also? Millennial Medical Imaging, PC? Or it's just his mailing address for the business?
I really don't know.
I don't know.
Because why should a house, I mean, how about for the greater good to hook others up to the sewer line? That just seems so undemocratic. I don't know the correct word. Is there anything that can be done? You can't retroactively do the town bylaw as far as hooking into sewer.
No.
We can't change the bylaws. You can never make a bylaw retroactive. Something already exists when you create the bylaw at the time. The only other option to explore could be whether or not the town would take it as a public good.
Or you take away eminent domain.
Because that sewer line is hooked into the town sewer line, is that not correct?
Right.
Or it, so,
Anita, we're looking at some other options, and I think we'll have some news in next month or so.
okay, I mean, I'm on the sewer. I'm not on the other side of the pipeline on Lake Drive that does not have the sewer. So this was just purely curiosity. And in your October 4th minutes, I'm just curious about this one, the DeSisto pump station. So they're looking into a backup generator. Does the town pay for any of that or do the work on the DeSisto pump station? Or is that a private thing that they have?
That's a private thing.
And it gets the water from the town reservoir,
Right.
It gets the water from the town water system.
water system. And there's enough water in the town water system if they should add 100 units.
Absolutely. We have all kinds of water.
But just trying to catch up, following up on some things. When they had a pipe burst and they had a pipe that broke from their lawnmower man, and they had a very, very large water bill, and they came to you and asked for an abatement. And I never heard the final results. I know you were considering it, but because the pipe damage was their fault, as opposed to the little old lady whose pipe in the basement broke, you weren't sure whether or not you were going to just forgive them the thousands of dollars of wasted water. What happened?
They paid for the water, which usually happens in any abatement situation, but the water never made it into the sewer. So they abated a sewer charge, I believe,
Right.
which is
but they
very
paid the
common.
Water bill.
They paid for 100% of the water because
Okay.
it was their issue that they broke the pipe. But the water never made it into the sewer, so there was an abatement for the sewer charges, which are usually averaged from the last 3 billing cycles from the tax collector's office. That's the common practice.
But as far as the pump station, the work that was done, they paid for any work?
The pump station it's under the ground at the end of Tree Farm Road is their pump station that was put in. Michael DeSisto paid to have that put in 1985. They own it. It's their thing. But we want them to have a backup generator because there's people that are not only DeSisto campus, there's other people on that leg of the water system, their private water line. And they need to have backup power, and we want some work done up there because they're still serving our water and purveying it outward. And we need to be involved with how the operation of that pump station is done. And we have a hand in that. We don't pay any portion of any repairs done there. We just kind of
Advice.
we advise and sometimes require.
And
That's a good thing.
they agree to that.
And they're they've been great to work with. We're actually going to do a little bit of stuff up there tomorrow.
Great. Yeah, I was aware that others were hooked into their water. That's why I was surprised that somebody wouldn't allow others to hook into a sewer line. But so DeSisto's okay. Thank you. And I'm glad to hear that you guys are starting to plan ahead for your retirement and replacements because it's a tough job. And I thank you all for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And with that, would someone make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.